Welcome one, welcome all back after the long weekend that saw, well, mostly some UFC action. Top heavyweights collide, or middling heavyweights if you
Yeah.
side with my theory here. But it's the Below Average Joes. We're back once again. It's Monday. That means we're here with another MMA weekend recap. I'm Noah Baker, one half, the co host,
Yes.
the duo. The
Yes.
man to my right, the left side of your screen,
Yes.
the left earbud, if you're
Yes.
listening on audio or whatever it might be. Yeah. He is the man with 99 problems, but being negative ain't one. Dominic Salee. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm just jolly. No, I'm doing good, man. It was a good weekend. For those that were here for Thursday's episode, or no, wait, I talked about that earlier in the week on Wednesday's episode. I went to see WWE SmackDown, a first WWE event for me in years, over a decade, and I had a good time. So I got to go from that into the UFC, from the scripted to the real life shit. It was a good weekend. All of my childhood meeting with my modern day. It was just a big twist and gopper of emotions this weekend for me. But it was good. I'm good. How are you? How was your weekend?
Well, I did not go to SmackDown. I went SmackDown on a couple plates of food. Maybe
Oh,
ordered some Taco Bell. Maybe went
nice.
SmackDown on that.
Okay.
Yeah, that was really good for the. That was really good for the diet right there. Um, yeah, I just watched a shit ton of stand-up specials this weekend. That's all I did. I just watched a lot of stand-up comedy this weekend, and there might be maybe I'll recommend one when we get to
All
the
right. All right.
to closing statements. But that's not why the people are here, Dominic. They're here to hear us talk about people punching each other in the face. And I want to give a thank you to some of the people that have been commenting lately on our episodes, on our
Yeah.
videos.
Yeah.
Been seeing a lot more interactions as of late. And,
Love it.
that always just it just I mean we're gonna do our thing. We're gonna do our grind regardless of
Yeah.
the level
The
of
numbers, right?
regardless of the numbers. But it does make it a little easier to
Yeah.
like kind of get out there and do it when people kind of and some of them it's like guy just saying algorithm comment. I mean,
Hey, shout out
that's
to
just
you.
nice. Yeah, that guy, man, that guy was commenting on everything. He was liking
Yeah.
everything on Instagram. I'm like, hell yeah, man, this guy ride or die right there, baby.
Yes.
But we start, Dominic, with UFC picks. Yeah,
Zip,
enter number
zip.
the middling heavyweights collide. Alexander Volkov, that big fucking tree of a Russian.
Oh,
He
man.
takes down Jairzinho Biggie Boy Rozenstruik in the first round, 2 minutes 12 seconds in. Maybe he's a bit surprising. I mean, I think we both even said on this show on Thursday that the idea of Volkov getting a finish here would surprise us, but he does surprise once again. I guess the question that we have to ask off the top, Dominic, is your thoughts on the finish. Referee Herb Dean doing another one of his classic
Yeah.
awkward finish, awkward step-ins.
It's always
Your
Herb in these
yeah,
situations.
I'm curious your thoughts on the finish. Do you agree with it? Do you feel like it was a little premature? Go ahead.
Oh, I thought you kind of said it best because you responded on Twitter to our podcast Twitter. It's above my head. If you guys don't follow us,
Yeah, it
follow us.
gets complicated. Dom
Yeah.
tweeted it from the podcast. I responded from my. It just
Right.
it
But
wasn't. It like some people I feel like might have read it and thought I was responding to a tweet I
your
put
own
out
tweet.
myself,
Yeah.
but I'm like, no, I didn't do that. I didn't do
No shame in that, Noah. No shame.
that. Well, yeah.
But it was a good stoppage, right? It seemed like the fight was over, and if Herb doesn't step in, it was one of those instances where Jairzinho was just going to keep taking shots. Like Volkov was on him, he wasn't going to stop being on him, and he looked out. You know what I mean? So it's that's what always sucks about these is that the ref steps in and it looks great, but all of a sudden Jairzinho stands up and it's like, oh damn. So it looks bad after the fact, but in the moment, that's a good stoppage. That's a TKO, and it was surprising. I did not think Volkov was going to get a finish at least early on in the fight. So it makes me look like a jackass, of course, right? I'm the guy with the podcast watching these fights every Saturday for 6-7 hours. We had company over last night. The main event starts, and he's like, "All right, Dom, What's kind of what's the breakdown here? Basically, I'm like, well,
Oh,
yeah, I know. I'm the guy that's supposed to all these casual people that come over. I'm the guy. I'm the guy that feeds the info. I'm like, well, Volkov's this big guy, 6'7". He's humongous. He's probably going to pick his shots, get it done over the course of 5 rounds, is what I would imagine. If Rozenstruik lets his hands go, the fight should end early. Look what fucking happens. Volkov gets a first round finish, so I'm an
Let
idiot.
me guess, they were all like, "Oh, you should even have a podcast."
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah.
Oh my god.
I'm just chuckling along with them in my head. I'm like, yeah, all right.
Look,
Anyways,
we call ourselves the Below Average just for a reason. We know we're shit.
Yeah.
We know we're shit.
We acknowledge it. Yes, but hey, Volkov to get a finish like this, I think. Is good for him. Again, it's tough, right? We talked about it. There's not many storylines for this being a main event. We didn't like it being a main event. He gets a win. He's back in the win column. That's all fine and dandy. But it's just like Volkov has never been able to put it all together, string 3, 4 in a row. Can he do it this time? We just have to wait and see.
Well, let me just say that as for the finish, you're right. I kind of gave my thoughts on Twitter. You just sort of re-illustrated that and kind of agreed with them. It's a gut call,
Yeah.
right? It's a split-second decision. If I were in Herb Dean's shoes, I would have stopped the fight as well. Rozenstruik was giving up his back, turning away from Volkov, not really intelligently defending himself. Of course, once Herb steps in, Rozenstruik does kind of like. The only thing that makes it sound bad is that Rozenstruik was never actually dropped.
True.
He never actually went down, which I get. Like, not every fight ends that way. I mean, you've seen some standing TKOs before, but it's a rarity. But I mean, one of those. I think what really made Herb like quick to react here, because most of the time when he's getting criticized for these type things, it's for the opposite reason. People are saying he's letting fights go on too long.
Be hesitant,
Man, nobody. I don't know whose wife Herb Dean had sex with that now in the MMA community to where now they just like come with pitchforks like ready to burn this man to the ground every time he makes a judgment call. But this time it was for being too quick. And I think what really threw him off was one of the first clean shots in the exchange that Volkov landed. It sent Rozenstruik's mouthpiece 20 feet. I mean, I need to see a measurement on that mouthpiece thing. Because, I mean, that mouthpiece went flying, Dom.
Yes.
I didn't even know it was possible to knock a mouthpiece that far out of someone's mouth. I mean, that was insane. So I would still like to see the measurement on that, but I think Herb was like, "Oh shit, mouthpiece flying. That's usually not a good sign."
Yeah,
and it did kind of look like Rozenstruik was kind of the right leg was doing a little stanky leg a little bit.
Yeah.
He looked like he was about to do the Ngannou fall, like how he kind of fell in the Ngannou fight, but Volkov doesn't quite carry the power like that, so it didn't really happen that way. I still think it's a fine call. I think if Herb lets it go, 10, 15 seconds later, you're probably still ending that fight. Obviously, we don't know that, but I'm just saying it was a pretty definite like win right there, in my opinion, for Volkov. So you're right on one hand, Dom, when we look past this and go, okay, kind of what's next, or what does this win mean for him? It keeps him relevant, which is important. That's an important thing for Volkov. He needs to remain relevant. I mean, you threw out the statistic. He had the third most UFC main events since, what was it, 2019?
It was 2017 or 2019, one of the two, but this was number 7.
Yeah, I mean...
And he's probably going to get number 8 now.
Well, okay. I was about to say, I don't know if we should, just because he won here, I think...
I know.
Let's still put you a little lower on these cards. But at the same time, I mean... When you look at kind of who's ahead, I'm pretty sure he's fought everybody ahead of him at this point. So, outside of, I guess, Ngannou.
Yeah, that's it.
I mean, he's fought... Well, he hasn't fought Stipe, but again, I don't think that fight's
Stipe and Tai, but those are,
Ooh, the Tai fight's interesting. That's a very interesting fight. But obviously, I know that's not going to happen because Ty is going to fight Cyril Gane. But in the future, that's an interesting matchup. I actually think for Rozenstruik, a good matchup is Chris Daukaus. Both guys.
That is a good fight.
Couple. Rozenstruik, this is a losing streak now for him, right? Is that 2 in a row?
That would be 2. Yeah.
So Daukaus also won 2 in a row. Both guys needing to step back, needing to kind of get out of the main event, shine for a little bit.
Yep.
Collide with one another. I think that's a solid fight. Again, I don't have a ton for either guy moving forward because really for Rozenstruik, it's more or less just kind of, it's sort of confirmation of what we kind of were worried about for him, and that he's maybe just not really that elite.
Mm-hmm.
For Volkov, dude has a ton of experience. He's 34-10 now. That's a lot of fights.
Yeah.
And he's not necessarily the youngest guy in the world either, so I don't know how much more he has left as an elite heavyweight, or at least as a top-level heavyweight, but we'll see. If he's going to make a quick turnaround, though, I don't know what kind of matchup he's going to get. Is it going to be a rematch? Is it going to be, is he going to have to fight someone
behind?
Like, let's say, Pavlovich maybe beats Derek Lewis.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Or maybe the winner of that fight. A rematch with Volkov and Derek Lewis could be an interesting proposition, since Volkov was winning that fight so handedly the first time before getting knocked the fuck out, and then the balls was hot, all that stuff. So
yes,
that's really all I have to say about this fight. Dominic, you got any other thoughts?
No, it was one of those, right? There's not a ton of takeaways, but this next one, I think there's a bit more.
You think so? Okay, co-main event. This was the fight that I think most people, myself especially, this was the selling point of this card, was this co-main event here. A very important fight in the featherweight division. Movsar Evloev. I like saying Evloev. The broadcast, the way that they were announcing it, which by the way, John Anik, Paul Felder on the 2-man call. Great stuff. They were great.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's Dominic's ideal booth right there, I think.
Yes, absolutely.
But I like Evloev. He undefeated, has looked really good up to this point, but Dominic, I think this was his 5th outing in the UFC, or his 6th outing maybe.
Yeah.
And he had an average fight time in the UFC of 15 minutes.
Yep.
He's literally never finished a fight up to this point. So that's what a lot of people were hoping for, but a lot easier said than done against Dan 50K Ige. Dan Ige's got a hell of a chin, and it showed in this fight multiple times.
Yeah.
Movsar does get the unanimous decision win, Dominic, over Dan Ige. My question for you, is it still disappointing, though, despite the fact this is the biggest win of his career, it puts him in the top 10, is there a disappointment factor to this fight because he couldn't get that finish on Dan Ige?
So I guess immediate thought is like, you want to see him eventually get a finish, right? But then you really dig in. Dan Ige's never been finished. That was his 6th loss, and he's never been finished. And you look at the competition that he's fought in the UFC, I think that says a lot more about just Ige and his durability, because I thought it was a damn near flawless performance from Movsar. He dominated this fight from start to finish. He pieced up Dan Ige on the feet, which going in, you think Ige, well, that's his route to victory, right? If he can get a knockout or keep it on the feet. No, he got pieced up, battered. His face was a bloody mess, and got dominated on the ground. Movsar's had 2+ takedowns, and I think all 6 of his UFC fights. The control time, he's constantly dealing damage, ground and pound. But he's not overzealous and doesn't try to rush in for a finish. So I guess, if anything, you just want to see a little bit more urgency when he does have his opponents on the fence, quote unquote, to get a finish. But I mean, again, we kind of had this discussion on Thursday. I even asked you, like, does a finish do more for you than another decision by Evloev? And you're like, well, it depends, because if he goes in there and 1-punch knockout, it doesn't tell me as much as 15 minutes of domination over Ige, which is what we saw. So I think, again, a finish would be an icing on the cake, but this, to be 6-0 now in the UFC, it was his first top 10 victory over a guy like Dan Ige, who is back and forth, but he's fought the toughest guys in the division since he came into the UFC. I think it said a lot. I thought it was a fantastic performance.
Yeah, it was a really. If you rate this performance, it's got to be an A,
Yeah. Oh
probably
yeah.
A
Yeah.
minus. A. I mean, didn't get the finish, but outside of that, you completely outworked a
Yeah. A
solid
workhorse.
opponent, Dan
Yeah.
Ige. Yeah, for 15 minutes. Dan Ige, known for his pressure, his striking, pressure striking, and
Yeah.
Movsar kind of neutralized him. And in the first round, it's not like the takedowns were coming necessarily easy right
Mm.
away. He had to kind of work for it, and also at times had to go through extended periods of colliding on the feet, and he
Yeah.
looked good.
Yeah.
That I mean, let's talk about the flying knees that he was throwing. I mean,
Mm.
just Dan Ige, very
Dude, he
smart
ate
by the way.
one bad.
Ige trying to keep a lower base,
Yeah.
recognizing the threat of the takedowns. Movsar, because of that, throwing these flying knees at him. The one that he ate, I mean, again, anybody else in the division that probably knocks out,
Yeah.
besides, well, I shouldn't say anybody else in the division. I mean, you got Max Holloway,
Yeah. Right.
Volkanovski
Right.
with granite chins as well, but Ortega with granite chin.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, there's a lot of granite chins in this. Maybe
Yeah.
it doesn't knock out anybody in this division, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it was a hell of a knee. A
Yes.
hell of a knee. And just showed how fucking tough Dan Ige is to be able to eat it. Now, for people, if anybody was disappointed in the lack of a finish, outside, okay, your point is good, solid. Ige, never been finished, but okay, let's say Movsar, if he's really that guy, he should be able to finish this fight. Let's just say that that's what people think. Well,
Hmm.
I think it's just going to be something that Movsar is always going to have weighing over him. The lack of a
Yeah.
finish, lack of finishes, and they're not going to get any easier. I
No.
mean, if he wasn't able to finish the likes of, you know, Joey Buttfuck from, on the first fight he was ever a
Yeah.
part of in the UFC, he's not going to have an easier time finishing Dan Ige. I do think there's something to be said that when Movsar gets his control, gets that top position in his wrestling, he tends to go into autopilot a little bit. He's so good at
Mm.
keeping that top position, holding the control, that he doesn't really put himself in any sort of risky position to
Right.
look for a finish. He doesn't have to.
Yeah.
And we can debate on if that's a right or wrong thing to do, or if that's something that you should support or not support. But it's getting him wins, and here he looked great. I mean, he put it on Ige. The next opponent he gets, it's not going to come any easier to get that finish. I believe he called out Arnold Allen. Was that who he called out?
I think that is who he called out. I don't know if he ever even said the specific name, but he's like, "There's a guy. He's 8-0 in the UFC. He's avoiding me." Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
That's Arnold Allen, right?
Arnold
He's the only
Allen,
guy
right.
that's undefeated in the UFC.
Yeah, and Arnold Allen did have a tweet in response to this that said essentially that he's looking ahead, and then had an
Right.
emoji, Japanese flag, and a zombie. So
Uh,
we kind of know what he's looking for there.
Yeah.
Also, Ilia Tuporia, who was supposed to fight Movsar, I believe, right? Those two were matched up at the.
I think they have
January.
been in the past. Yeah.
January. I remember they were supposed to fight at UFC 270. I believe Movsar had to pull out due to like some weight cutting issues
Yeah.
or something, or had some sort of injury.
Yeah.
And Tuporia had some not very nice things to say about him pulling out of that fight. Well, Tuporia went to Twitter again, and once again was kind of saying, "Look, you're not calling me out. You're avoiding me. You're being a pussy, essentially.
Yeah, yeah.
All this stuff." So Dominic, what kind of matchup would you like to see next for Movsar? Now that he's hit the top 10, should he be the one looking ahead, or would the kind of matchup that he was supposed to have with Tuporia still be kind of a lucrative option right now?
I don't think it's a terrible option. Like if they made it, I would definitely be excited. It's two of the those are the two prospects of the division because everybody else is kind of solidified where they are now. But even Evloev after that win, he's kind of solidified himself too. He's going to be number 10 come Tuesday morning. So I would say he should look ahead as well, Noah. I think Topuria is not far behind, and I think eventually we see those two fight regardless. I think they are just that good. But I love there are a lot of fights here, but there's also some that are booked because I'd love him versus Emmett or Cater, but obviously those two are fighting each other here in 2 weeks. Arnold Allen would be an incredible fight, but he does deserve to fight ahead. The poor guy's been underrated for so long. That Dan Hooker win put him on the map. I mean, what about like him versus Bryce Mitchell, him versus Giga Chikadze? Like either one of those two options, I would be all here for. Honestly, more so for Mitchell, just because he's another phenomenal grappler. Do they then cancel each other out and see him on the feet? I don't know, but I think either one of those two fights is what should be next for Evloev, and honestly, the two most realistic options.
Yeah, let me just put this out there because Bryce Mitchell, I said after he won against Barboza, I wanted to see him and Chikadze 5 rounds main
Yeah.
event. If not that, Mitchell versus Evloev here. That might even be a more interesting matchup. Two guys that are more known for their ground game, having to potentially strike it out on the feet. Make that 5-round headliner. These are the kind of fights that should be the headliners on these cards, by the way. I'm just throwing it out there again. That would be a beautiful main event, I think. Now,
I would
is
love
that the fight that ends up happening? I feel like Bryce Mitchell's pretty... most of these guys are on win streaks right now, kind of that we're looking at here. So they're all trying to look ahead. The most vulnerable guy ahead is the Korean Zombie right now. He's kind of left himself up in the air, like, I don't know if I'm going to retire or not. And then it looks like he's not going to retire. Arnold Allen really wanting to get that fight. I think most people would probably favor Arnold Allen in that fight at this point, coming off of the Zombie's last performance. But, I don't know. There's not a ton of vulnerable guys in this top group at featherweight. No. It's a Shark Tank, really. Outside of, and even the Korean Zombie just a year ago was beating Dan Ige in the main event, and did it by showing new wrinkles to his game. So he might not be good enough to beat Volkanovski, but who's to say he doesn't put up a good fight against Arnold Allen? I think that's not out of the question. But if you just look at the rest of the division, it's just, Shark Tank, absolute Shark Tank. No easy fights available. So I do look forward to seeing kind of what's next for these guys. For Dan Ige, do you have anything on him? Anything that you would want to see? It's a tough. Really, when you look at Dan Ige's run, Dom, let's be honest. He had that really fantastic one-punch knockout win about a year ago. I forget who that was against, but
Gavin Tucker. He was undefeated before
Gavin
that.
Tucker.
It clocked.
Was a really good win. Gavin Tucker, kind of this unranked guy looking to make a splash into the top 10. One punch KOs him. Besides that, he does have a win over Barboza, but that was a fight that a lot of people thought Barboza won.
Yeah, that was a close.
So when you really look at it, his run's not been he's getting a reputation for how tough he is. But Dominic, that can kind of be a backhanded compliment when he's not putting a lot of wins together. I think Ige needs a pretty big step back here. What do you think?
Well, how about this then, Noah? Because we already mentioned Ilia Topuria, and he is number 15 right now. I know, it's mean. It's mean. I know. This is mean.
You're so mean.
Mean. I know. But Dan Ige versus Ilia Topuria is what I would.
It's a great fight. It's a great fight. I do think there might have been some disservice done to Dan Ige by him getting that. That's why these judges' decisions are so important. Him getting that nod over Barboza set his career to a direction he may not have been ready for. He got that main event with Calvin Kattar. Yes, it was a great fight. He gave it his all, but Calvin Kattar won 4 or 5 rounds in that fight still. And then since then, you just have really outside of the one-punch knockout win against an opponent much lower than the rest of the guys he's been losing to, it just kind of paints this picture that Dan Ige is a very tough guy, a very good fighter, but maybe is just ranked a little too high for what he's really capable of right now.
Yeah. Hey, if it's not Ilia, maybe he fights the winner of Billy Squared. I don't know. That would be an unranked guy, maybe.
There you go. Actually, you know what, Dom?
Did I bring it back there a little bit?
You brought it back. You were really mean at first, but now you can come bring it in.
There we go. Hug time.
More on this card to come, but first we got to talk about some fight announcements. There are some good ones here, Dom. July 2nd, UFC 276. You got to skip, bro.
No, I'm not. I'm going to be able to watch the fight.
Bro, I don't know what to tell you. Garry is back, taking on Gabe Green. Garry, one of the bigger prospects in the UFC right now. I mean, Dom, I don't know what to tell you. You gotta skip. Look, okay, let me paint. I'll tell the audience what we're talking about here. I don't know the people involved, but they probably don't watch our shit anyways. So
I don't think so.
Dominic is going to a wedding on the
Yep.
day of UFC 276. Now, it looks like it's all going to work out to where he will be home to watch the majority of the card,
Yeah.
At least the main card, right?
Yeah, but the problem is the prelims are
Prelims are pretty stacked.
Yeah.
Pretty stacked.
Yeah.
So Dominic, I'm just saying, bro. Like I get, I think if you went up to if you again, I don't know these people, but let's say you just text them or called them or sent them a fucking pigeon with the message wrapped on its foot or something, and said, just put a list of the fights on
the
this
fights,
card.
just the card. Yeah,
They would be like,
we get it. Yeah,
like it's our night.
Send your gift in the mail.
But UFC 270, like really, it's their fault for putting it on the same night as UFC 276. It's International Fight Week, people.
Right.
Come on, no weddings allowed. No, I'm just kidding. But so since you're not going to skip, I do want to get your thoughts on this fight since you won't be able to watch it live.
Damn it, no. This is actually a really good fight because Gabe Green is someone that a lot of people aren't aware of, but he's coming off of a fantastic win in his last fight, a TKO victory, one in which he was already looked at as the underdog going into that. But this is a guy that is also just like under the radar, putting together a skill set. I think this is actually a really good fight between him and Ian Garry. I
agree because Ian Gary's got a lot of the shine, a lot of the eyes on him. But again, he is still a work in progress. You saw that in his last fight. He's not a fully polished product yet, which I don't think anybody's expecting that. It's not necessarily like the Paddy Pimblett thing where people are kind of thinking Paddy Pimblett should be fighting Tony Ferguson and shit like that. Like just Ian Garry, I think more people recognize it's a slow build with him right now.
Yeah.
Gabe Green, great opponent to kind of see where he's at this point.
Yep.
Next one, August 13th. Alexa Grasso taking on Viviane Araujo. Alexa Grasso, one of the newest one of the newest ladies into this top 5 here at women's flyweight. She got a pretty big win at UFC Columbus that we saw live.
Yeah.
Now she's taking on Viviane. Is this the right kind of matchup for her? Or do you feel like she's kind of getting snubbed?
So I like the fight at least, like stylistically, because Viviane's coming off of a good win. She still has potential, I believe. But I feel like after Grasso's win streak and being able to finish JoJo the way she did, I feel like she deserves to fight up. But I guess there's just like no one available. Taylor's fighting for the title. Andrade just fought at strawweight. Lauren Murphy's fighting Misha. So if no one's available, next best thing, and it's against another tough prospect, I'll take it. I'll settle.
Yeah, and then you have Chukagian fighting Manon.
Right.
So
right.
Yeah, just you're right. There isn't
whoever's available.
There. If Grasso wants to stay available, next lady up, right?
Right. Yep.
Now we got a little bit of one championship. We always keep sneaking them in here in the fight announcements lately, and it's the rematch, Dom. August 26th for us Yankees in America. 161. I guess one got tired of doing the.
Yeah, they're not doing the names.
The UFC tried it at one point. It didn't work out. So,
true.
161. We'll see Adriano Moraes once again defend his one flyweight title against Mighty Mouse Demetrious Johnson. Has enough time passed to do this rematch? Is it kind of inevitable, or do you feel like, Dom, technically the only fight that Demetrious Johnson has had since the first loss is the Rodtang fight, which was not a full-on MMA battle. It was one of those special rules, first round Muay Thai, second round, MMA. He was able to submit a guy who's not a full MMA practitioner. So, your thoughts on this main event? Does it feel like Demetrious maybe should have had more time to maybe get some more wins, or is this just an inevitable main event because it's a big deal for one?
The latter right there. You hit it on the head. It's inevitable because of the name value. It's one of the biggest fights they can do. Let's book it again. I can't wait to see, Adriano Moraes outweigh Demetrious by 50 pounds come fight night and be 10 inches taller than him. But we'll see what happens if Demetrious can get that undisputed strap and put together a string of wins to really solidify himself over there in one, because he's still such a big deal to them. But Adriano Moraes is legit. He's got a couple title defenses or one title defense?
I believe he's got two. I think
Two, yeah.
I think the first one was Demetrious.
Oh, technically was Demetrious, yeah.
That he just defended like a couple months ago.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. Moraes can really solidify himself too as like a pound for pound over there in one if he can beat Demetrious twice. So.
I still think it's kind of a shame that Moraes is not the level of star that he really should be for them because he's got the look, he's got the talent, he's putting finishes together. You know, he finished Mighty Mouse. With a neat
nasty
a maneuver that would be illegal in America.
Yeah.
But should it be like? I mean, this guy he fucking need Mighty Mouse in the face when they were on the ground.
Yeah.
Nasty stuff. But some would say, some are saying, Dom, that Demetrious Johnson just kind of forgetting the rule sets. Maybe just didn't see that knee coming because he thought it was thinking it was illegal. I don't know.
Right.
I'm not one of those people. I'm just
when you look into it, right?
I'm just trying to help out this rematch.
Yeah, you're building it.
Look, I mean, obviously, Mighty Mouse should probably have a little bit more time. I mean, I'm sure he wants this fight.
Yeah.
But you're right, Dom. I mean, Moraes is just huge.
He's so much bigger.
You guys have to realize, too, that one's flyweight division is really the UFC's bantamweight division.
Yeah.
It's like a 10-pound. They implemented the like water testing or whatever it was called, the hydration test, which I guess they're working, but, you know.
Then you see this.
Then you see Adriano Moraes being able to make this weight class, and you're like, you're telling me he's not cutting weight because that dude is a mammoth. So,
he looks like he could be in Habib's 165-pound division.
Yeah, he is massive. So I look forward to the fight. It's going to be a big deal. It's going to be a big one. We'll get to talk about it on here. That's all fun. Last one, September 10th.
Huh.
They really just want to see this guy fucking. The UFC just really wants this guy to get knocked the fuck out every time.
I just spit on my mouse.
Shamil Abdurakhimov is gonna have to fight Jailton Almeida on September 10th. And look, hey, maybe he has some tricks up the sleeve, but Dominic, this feels like an inevitable outcome already. Jailton Almeida is likely gonna be looking at top 10 here before the end of the year. What a just rise this guy's on. His first fight in the UFC, not even a heavyweight.
Yeah.
Then he takes that heavyweight fight against Parker Porter and smashes him. And now here he is, third fight in the UFC, about to be against number 12, Shamil Abdurakhimov, who is probably one of the more vulnerable heavyweights in the top 15, coming off a couple tough knockout losses in a row.
Well, first off, I just think it's clear that the UFC knows what they have here with Almeida. And his skill set shows that and what he's done. But I just thought it was interesting that he's staying at heavyweight. And maybe it was just like, hey, whoever's available, I'll do 205, I'll do heavyweight, whoever's next. He's getting number 12. He is 1-0 in the UFC heavyweight division against Parker Porter. And he's getting a number 12 ranked heavyweight. I think that says it all right there about what this guy can be, the ceiling that he can have. But it's like, where do you want to see him? Or do you just, whatever's best available, put him there? Because he can clearly be a 205er. Because what do he weigh? 226 against Parker Porter? I mean, this could be some, like, a bit of a Hamzat-esque, like, beginning of career where he could go back and forth. There's a lot of potential here in this kid, and this fight explains it. Yeah,
I mean, Parker Porter, the true test for a top heavyweight if I've ever seen one. So
yeah. But if Almeida wins this, by the way, and goes 3-0, potentially 3 finishes, he probably all but locks up newcomer of the year at the Joeys. Maybe. There's a lot of great newcomers this year.
I don't know. You have a point. But Dominic, you gotta look at our list, bro. Mohamed Mohaev's on there. Jack Della Maddalena, who you talked about throwing a stack on next week.
Yep.
I mean, there's a lot of tough competition. Michael Morales. I mean, there's some great picks on there for this year. So it's like I have like 6 names and I haven't been able to whittle them down yet. Mike Malott also on there.
Yeah, it's like this will be our third Joey. This seems to be the most stacked for that category so far, I feel like.
Really, it really does. But you're right, though. He does have an early lead right now.
Yes,
for sure.
Yes.
Well, that's all for the fight announcements. Let's get into the rest of UFC Apex and blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah.
So, Lucas Almeida a guy who lost his Contender Series showing gets a chance here against Michael Trezano, a pretty firmly established guy in the UFC. And he gets the TKO, Dom, 55 seconds into round 3. Broke my heart when I woke up from my little cat nap.
Yeah.
This fight not going the distance. Your thoughts on Lucas Almeida and how he looked here against Trezano?
Great fight. Lucas Almeida nearly got finished in the first round badly. Came back, knocked Trezano down in the second round, got the finish early on in the third round. Very good fight. He's 14-1. Noah said the only loss in his career was on the Contender Series, and I think it was even a decision. But now he's got 14 wins, all 14 via finish. Very well-rounded, patient. Really, it was just a great fight. Both guys very smart, very technical.
Fight of the night. Got the bonus.
And as it should have. So it was quite the performance. That's still that's a pretty solid debut to get it over Michael Trezano. Not that he's like a world beater or anything, but Trezano's a guy that was putting it together. Fight by fight, you saw the potential growing. So it was a great first win in the UFC for Almeida.
I agree. Another debut on this main card, Karine Silva gets a first-round submission over Poliana Botelho, someone who's kind of a middling women's fighter, but someone firmly established, someone who's been there, done that for a while. So Karine Silva getting that first-round submission with 5 seconds left in the round. Your thoughts on her and maybe her potential here?
I think it was a lot cleaner for tongue-twisted performance than what we saw of her on the Contender. Yes, she got the finish there. She's got 15 wins. 15 finishes. She's finished every single fight. That says something, by the way, for being in the flyweight division. But this, I didn't expect her to look this good and calm and composed. And she kind of she hurt Poliana on the feet, found the opening, then got the submission. I think it does show her well-rounded skill set. I just want to see really her get tested past the early part of the second. Can she be there in the later rounds? That's what I want to see next. But there's definitely potential. I mean, when you're finishing fights like this, there's got to be something. So
yeah, truthfully, the Contender Series bout I didn't walk away
it was
thinking we had
sloppy
much with her, but here I liked what I saw. I thought she looked really good. Now you're right. That's the big question that we're going to hope to get answered. When you have someone that finishes at this rate, it's kind of the opposite of Movsar. It's like we actually want to see you go 15 minutes now. So but someone to watch out for sure. That was that strawweight, right?
I think that fight actually was at strawweight, yeah. But she has fought at flyweight. You're right, yeah. So even more impressive then when you take that into account.
I mean, a talent-stacked strawweight division.
Yeah.
Maybe this could be a fresh face. I don't know. I liked what I saw. Alonzo Menefield, Dom, he looked pissed, and honestly, maybe just don't piss this guy off because Askar Mozarov was kind of I don't know what this guy was trying.
What a week!
He was trying to make the greatest heist of the year. Here's the story, if you guys don't know, which I'm sure many of you've kind of heard it by now, but essentially, at the beginning of the week, Askar Mozarov's professional MMA record was 25-7, according to Tapology and all sources, right?
Yeah.
By the end of the week, it was 19-12.
Big difference.
Now, there was an article kind of written on this that went into detail about how apparently members of Mozarov's team had been they had made fake fight event posters and I mean we're calling trying to pretend to be promoters for shows and really shady stuff going on.
Changed his name or something for a couple.
Yeah, he fought under 3 different names in his career. This guy is. I mean, I kind of want him to stick around just for the the next time he comes out, is he going to fight under a different name? I don't know. I mean, you can't deny that neck tattoo, dude. I'm just imagining him showing him a poster is this you fighting? And it's him with a fake mustache, but he still has that huge ass neck tattoo. He's it's not me, dude.
Yeah.
But he got the shit kicked out of him here by Alonzo Menefield. Alonzo, he's a guy, right? He's a guy again. That's I've kind of said about some people in the last couple fights. He's kind of firmly established in the UFC, but not a guy who's necessarily done a ton. He lost to OSP in a fight that he should have won. Actually, an interesting statistic. I believe this was his 9th UFC fight. I think he had 8 before this. He had been the favorite in all 8 of his UFC fights, but I believe he was only 5-3. So Kind of an interesting statistic that I like. The UFC does that now when they put some statistics.
Yeah,
on
I like
the
that.
favorite or the underdog. So he does get the TKO here in the first round. Movsar, I mean, I think that's it for him. Probably him and Dean Barry having the shortest UFC careers in the recent memory. Am I right?
Yeah, I love that I placed money on Dean Barry, but yeah, he's probably gone. The fight week build up, the lackluster performance. Minifield though, like built like a brick shit house. I'd love to really see what he can do, like potential wise, if he can put it all together. I feel like he can do something.
I mean, he's
Maybe
34
not.
years old, Dom.
Yeah, time's against him. It's not on his side. So
I mean, he recognizes that, and what's funny is like even Ryan Spann came out on Twitter and was like, "Dude, seriously, when this guy's mad about something, he's my least favorite guy to spar against." And he was pissed about this shit with Movsar. He said, I mean, the quote was hilarious. He was like, "This guy's fighting." He's like, "This guy's got 3 different records."
Yeah.
I mean, just TKOing him twice in the same night, just crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Karolina Kowalkiewicz turned back the clock, Dom.
Definitely.
Got second round submission over Felice Herrig, 2 pioneers, if you will, of the women's strawweight division. Karolina, former title challenger, fought at UFC 205, the first event in New York against Joanna.
People forget.
But those were better days for both of these women, actually. Karolina was on like a 4 or 5 fight skid. Felice Herrig hadn't won a fight in I don't know how many years. These two had fought before at UFC 223 in Brooklyn.
Greatest card ever. Anyways.
Fair point. Karolina won via Dolly smash. Oh, no, sorry. That was something else. She won via split decision. So here with the second fight, I'm just going to say my piece, and then I'll let you...
He's got a lot of piece to say.
No, I don't. Because I don't want Dom to silence me. So I'm not gonna say what just Dom does the editing, so I ultimately am at his discretion. I'm at Dom's discretion. So let me just say this. I understand people being very happy for Karolina because, again, pioneer, right? You'd like to see her getting a win. She looked very happy about it.
Yeah.
But then when she got on the mic and she's like, "I'm back," I'm sorry, I just don't really think so. I think this fight said a lot more about Felice Herrig's capabilities at this point. Felice just didn't have anything really, and Felice Herrig never really was like a real. I mean, she at one time I think she was like 5-1, but then she lost 4 straight or whatever. But at least the UFC gave her mic time so she could retire, which was an interesting move. They didn't do that for, I don't know if they did that for Anderson Silva, but at least they did it for Felice Herrig. So your thoughts on Karolina's performance? She didn't get a performance bonus from this, funny enough.
She did or did not?
She did not.
Oh, really? That actually surprises me. I thought she would have. That's
well, you could say, I mean.
There were a lot of finishes on this card.
There was and you're right. She probably should have, but I like how you react a lot differently than like people on MMA Twitter do.
Yeah.
When it comes to someone being snubbed for a bonus, you react like, "Oh, that's an interesting fact. She didn't get a bonus." These people are like,
"You son of a bitch!"
At Dana White, eat my shit, bitch. And you're just like, "Oh." That was a very interesting fact you just told me. It's like, okay. So it's just interesting to know. Dom does not support fighters. That's what he's trying to say here. He's just like, you didn't get a bonus. Well, that's very interesting to me.
Hey, I liked what I saw from Karolina, but Noah's right. While it was a good performance, does it say a ton about where you are? Because she's 30. No, Felice was 37. Karolina's 36. She had lost 5 in a row. All to good competition, albeit, but just wasn't giving anything. If she can actually beat someone with more relativeness right now in the division, maybe it is like number 15 or whoever's back there in the top half, and does the same type of performance where she looks good, but then beats somebody like that, then we could talk a little bit about maybe you're back a little bit compared to the old Carolina. But it was a feel good moment. Like you could tell the emotion, like that just felt like, because honestly, if she loses, she's probably done. That would have been 6 in a row. That would have been actually, I saw before the fight happened, if she would have lost that and made it 6 in a row, that would have been the most fights ever consecutively lost by a women's fighter in the UFC. So she did not make history.
Look, I like Carolina, so I don't want to like clown on her here for it, but it did when she did say I'm back. Like I think she was kind of led into that by Paul. I think Paul said something about her being back, so she's like, "Yeah, I'm back." But when she said it, I definitely got the Cam Newton scoring a touchdown last season vibes. Insert clip here.
Yes, because we know how the rest of the season turned out.
Yeah. So hopefully that's not what's in store for her future, but as time will tell. Tony Gravely, Dom.
Damn it. Good on Tony though, but damn it.
Tony Gravely gets the first round just over first minute knockout of Johnny Munoz Jr. to give him his first loss of his career, I believe. Tony Gravely, Dom. I believe 5-1 in his last 6 fights. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And let's remember, I don't know if you remember, his one loss in that run was a fight. I don't remember. I'm looking him up now. I don't remember exactly which card it was on. It was one of these cards in December. I want to say it was on, like, I got it pulled up right here. Yeah, so he fought Nate Maness at, this was the Anthony Smith-Ryan Spann card back in September of last year. And I remember this fight because it was an absolute banger of a fight, like just an awesome fight. But what made it awesome was that it started with Tony Gravely just beating the shit out of Nate Maness, nearly finishing him multiple times. But then Nate Maness was able to come back, Gravely just wiping himself out.
Yeah.
So really, Tony Gravely very close to being 6-0 in his last 6 fights. I mean, just honestly, this guy, we might have to start kind of recognizing that he's very legit. And I mean, the power that he was able to put into such a little boop, just a little bloop. Yeah. Like, I know that one had to hurt you, Dom, because you had put money on Munoz money line. Yeah. And like, I was like sitting there like, huh? What put him out?
Dude, I thought I didn't know what. I thought he got like hit on the like a shoulder.
I thought literally Andy walked in the room and it was like Andy's coming and he's just done. Didn't even get hit with anything.
Yeah, I mean, it was so short, but it hit right on the button. It put Johnny Munoz out. It sucked. Plus 110 underdog. It fails for me on the betting
Johnny
side.
Munoz undefeated, so like to be able to put him out that easy, it was seemingly easy. I mean, just with that, little force behind it, it seemed just great stuff. I think Tony Gravely might be a name to really watch out for.
Yeah, and I think I love how you painted it. What, 5-1 you said now, or 6-1, whatever the case, in the UFC. His record overall, I think now is 23-7. So it's not like anything perfect or pretty, but in the UFC, he's winning. By the way, the only loss to Nate Maness. Nate Maness is a fucking animal that a lot of people, I think, forget how good he is. So yes, I think we could see even more better days ahead for Tony Gravely. And at one time, people probably didn't think that because his last fight, he was a favorite in this one, all so slightly, but his last one, he had a great performance that he won a decision in, and he was the underdog going into that fight.
And that was the guy making his debut from the Contender Series, Simon Oliveira, which just proves my point about the Contender Series guys, I think. No, Tony Gravely, also a Contender Series guy. 4-2 in the UFC is his
4-2.
So he lost his debut, so he had won on the Contender Series. And then, of course, he loses his debut like all Contender Series guys do. But he was fighting Brett Johns.
Yeah.
And then he got wins over Geraldo de Freitas, Anthony Burchak, and then he loses to Nate Maness and then rallies off Simon Oliveira, Johnny Munoz. So not a ton of names on there, obviously.
Right.
But I'd like to see him get a step up in competition just because, I mean, he looks good in these wins. He's 30 years old. Now's kind of the time to really test this guy, I think.
Yep, I agree.
Finally, Erin Blanchfield. Didn't make it look easy, but she gets to come from behind win in the second round submission win over J.J. Aldrich. I feel like I just have positive takeaways for both fighters in this one. Is that
Yep.
is that accurate? Even though this was a finish, Erin Blanchfield just very opportunistic. You know, the opening just showed itself, and she took full advantage of it. So she's a real problem. Like
Yes. And she's 22,
there might be
23.
there might be something to be said for the fact that she was losing this fight up to this point, but I think that just says more about her opponent JJ Aldrich and how good JJ Aldrich actually is.
Yep.
Aldrich literally just one slip up, one opening, and it was over. Blanchfield just able to lock in that submission, but Aldrich was bigger. Her power seemed to be kind of hurting Blanchfield a lot more. It just seemed she was much stronger in any sort of clinch or position. And I think she has a future here for sure. And I mean, like you even mentioned over text, what a rise for her coming from someone who was nearly written off as a castaway at one point.
Yeah. She was on a 3-fight win streak going into this fight. And no shame in losing to Erin Blanchfield.
Didn't she lose her first 3 fights in the UFC?
Yeah, she was on some sort of iffy skid. Because I think it was like kind of a similar how Sam Hughes is right now. You know what I mean?
Look it up while you're talking.
But yeah, again, no shame in losing to Erin Blanchfield. These are both prospects. Blanchfield is just a little bit ahead right now. She's 3-0. And that does say something to get a finish when you're down on the cards like that, because this is someone in Blanchfield that didn't have a ton of finishes going in. Her first 2 UFC fights were by decision. So it was a great fight, a great win, and nothing negative on JJ's side either.
So actually, she's never even been on a losing streak in the UFC. But at one point in time, she was 4-3 in the UFC.
So win one, lose one, kind of.
And then went on that 3-fight win streak.
Yeah.
So she's 7-4 now in the company. Still has a lot of finishes, like only 2 has a lot of decisions, excuse me. She still only has 2 finish wins and 11 victories, so she could probably work on that more. But I mean, she is very good though,
and only 29 too. So yeah.
Well, that's it for the rest, Dom. Shall we transition over to the below average bet slip?
Unfortunately.
Well, look.
Oh, hold on. I forgot how to scroll. There we go. Okay, go ahead and lead us in. I'll get it up.
Look, man. I mean, we're garbage. I mean, that's all that there is to it. Throw us out with the trash. Like it's over. It's done.
And that's this week's below average bet slip.
Anything you would like to say, Mr. Uppity, Mr. Rogers? Anything you'd like to say?
There is a lot of red on this card, and we call it the below average bet slip.
And it's all mine. There's a lot of red on here, and it all belongs to me, man.
I did listen. Watching this card, I felt bad for my counterpart Noah, because it's not even like that they were bad bets, but like the Trezano Almeida was in the 3rd round with not much longer left, and then there's a finish. Latilla Silva, that ended quickly, but
there was a lot of. I mean, you're right. It was the 3rd round, but it was only 55 seconds in.
Okay, right. But like, and even so, the 0.75 units. That one's my fault anyway. I take the blame on Noah placing that bet. But that one, like, the openings I felt were there for Renat to get the finish, and it didn't happen. You know what I mean? Like, and then you look at the parlay, the 2-unit parlay. Noah gets 2 legs out of 3. Here, Kovalkovich, Carolina turns back the clock and gets a submission. I don't even know if she's ever had a submission win in her life before, and it happened last night. It was one of those fucking cards that just make you so aggravated to place money on fights. Is that fair to say? Like that? That's that card.
I think my record for parlays could only be best described or best compared to the way the Reds started their season. I think I'm like 3-22 on parlays or something. Just some monstrosity.
Yeah.
Those parlays. But every time it looked so appealing. I mean, tell me that parlay doesn't look appealing.
I know.
Like I should have went with the Evloev pick. I should have. But I wasn't. I thought that Dan Ige might have had a little bit more to give than what transpired. It just, look, we are what we are, Dom. We call it the below average bet slip. We're the below average Joes. We're not giving betting advice. So,
hey, we've been doing it for 5 months.
I mean, we're cooked, but that's fine. You guys can just follow us so you can
Laugh.
do the opposite of what we do. And I mean, you might be down now, but in the second quarter, baby, you're fucking rich. I mean,
Yeah.
this quarter 2 has been something else. So
Yeah.
we're cooked. We're done. It's over. There's no sunshine. There's no rainbow. No sun at the end of the rainbow here. And that's it, right, Dom?
That's all for today's bet slip.
Yeah. So now
I almost left the studio instead of taking that off the screen. My bad.
Okay. So now it's time for the way we always end our show. Yeah, I know we didn't talk about the fucking. I literally have it written on here so I don't miss it, but you guys know to follow us on social media. Anyways,
We'll do it on Thursday.
Let's end the show. Closing statements, Dom. It's our time to talk about anything and everything going on in the world. It could be about MMA. It could not be about MMA. What do you have for today's closing statements?
Noah, there's a lot going on in the world, but there's a lot more going on in the upside down, baby. Because how about that intro right there? I take a lot of chills. But so for any of my fellow, I'm not even going to say fellow nerds because millions of people watch this show. But if anyone out there is a fan of Stranger Things, you know that season 4 just released a couple weeks ago, part 1 that is, and I have finished those first 7 episodes, patiently waiting for July 1st to hit when the last 2 come out. And I just wanted to say that as a fan of that show for the past however many years, it's been so cool to watch these little kids just grow with the show, and it just gets better and better by the season. I feel like in this season, I'm not giving spoilers because I know Noah still has to watch it, but it is just so good. It's chef's kiss. You know, episode 4, Dear Billy, those out there, you know what I'm talking about. Fantastic storytelling. Then you got episode 7. The final 20 minutes are an emotional roller coaster. I didn't know whether to cry, to laugh, to scream, to mute myself and never speak again. It's just such a wonderful show. If you watch Stranger Things, what did you think so far of the first 7 episodes? And yeah, that's what I got for today.
There's an episode called Dear Billy.
Dear Billy, episode 4.
Yeah, Billy, the guy who played Billy in the show, I actually was a big fan because I forget his real name. He's got like a not a very common name. It's like Doc Ray Montgomery.
Yeah, I think he's an Aussie.
Yeah, he was the Red Ranger in the Power Rangers movie. So,
really?
Yeah, and I remember enjoying that movie a decent amount. And Power Rangers guy,
yeah.
Morphin' time, baby.
Of course.
Fucking fly in here. It's a fly.
I thought a Power Ranger kicked the door to.
I thought it was a spider for a second, but it was a fly past my face. But he played Billy in the show, and I thought he did a great job, even though that character, man, what a roller coaster with him.
I loved that character. I really wish it wouldn't have ended the way it did, but anyway.
Yeah, spoilers.
For those that haven't seen season 3, yes, spoiler alert.
My closing statement. So, as I said, I've been watching a lot of stand-up this weekend. Now, I'm still fairly new into I've listened. It's so weird how comedy's kind of turned. How comedians have now comedians are all on podcasts, right? They're all podcasts.
It does seem that way.
Along with their stand-up. So I've been introduced, I've been watching a lot of comedians' podcasts without watching their stand-up. I mean, that's how I was introduced. Well, Joe Rogan, I was introduced through the UFC, but the last thing that I got introduced to with Joe Rogan was his stand-up. Mm-hmm. I mean, I watched him on Fear Factor back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
Then the UFC. Then I get into his podcast. And then it's like, well, I'll check out his stand-up. His stand-up is very interesting. It's a lot different than his on-screen, how he is as a person.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of great comedians out there. Tom Segura is a personal favorite of mine. That's a guy from Cincinnati, actually. But he's one of the bigger acts in the world. But I wanted to give a shout-out to 2 different stand-up specials I watched yesterday that are both available on YouTube. So it's for free. One of them, let me make sure I get this right. Shane Gillis, he had a stand-up special called Live in Austin. If you guys are a fan of Joe Rogan's podcast, he's been on there a lot recently. He was actually the guy that was hired to be on SNL, and then 4 days later got fired because some comments came to light from his podcast or whatever. Guy is hilarious, though. So check out his special on YouTube, live in Austin. And then the other one is a guy named Fahim Anwar, and it's his special called Hat Trick, where he does a set in all 3 rooms of the Comedy Store in LA. So very interesting kind of setup for the special, and both just killed it. And this was my first time listening to these guys do stand-up, even though I've been fans of them kind of before that. So highly recommend both of those. I saw with Fahim's comments, people were donating because it didn't cost anything to watch it.
Oh, gotcha.
So that could be an option if you guys would like to support them as well. You could also donate to their video. But they're free to watch, and they're great comedians. And we should support good comedy, especially in dark times like these.
Amen. Amen, Noah.
Yeah.
That was fucking beautiful.
Thank you. As a tear streams down my eye, as a bald eagle soars in the east, I'm Noah Baker. That's Dominic Salee, the man with 99 problems, but being a soy boy ain't one. We're the Below Average Joes, and we'll see you on Thursday.